Hey, there's new polling data out on the governor's race. Ted Nesi is here to break it down for us. What's happening? Welcome into Dan York's State of Mind. I am Dan York. I was just told that I'm going to miss the company barbecue because it's in the middle of the day and I'm doing a radio show and my producer Jess won't save me anything. Nope. I got that bad news 10 seconds before airtime. I had to process it. It's devastating to me. Anyway, how you doing? Everybody all right? What a beautiful summer day this was. Oh my gosh. Well, late spring, right? Where are we in the calendar? You know what I mean. Finally, cherish these days because it's going to get hot fast, I think. Well, let's not talk about the weather. We got more important things to do here. Oh, got to show up now. Little judicial decision there. We'll discuss. And I want you to know, where this story first began and how it's traveling, so you are clear on the facts of the case. Sometimes just telling the truth works to your advantage. I think the mayor of Cranston's having some difficulty getting there. This is a fascinating, complicated, compelling, and high-level conversation coming out of Washington right now as to what the right thing to do was, is, and will be. And of course, Michelle Obama was here yesterday, and it was a big day for everybody. Let's break it down before we get to the political numbers that Ted Nesi will show us from the Fleming poll, the WPRO, the Projo and Eyewitness News poll. I can't put my radio station in there. We had nothing to do with it. Let's go to the first item. Gordon has to show up. Yes, excuse me for the scratch. I'm a little loosey-goosey tonight. Let's go to the headline. Here's the first headline today on WPRI.com that says the Speaker of the House can't quash the subpoena, meaning the judge wouldn't quash the subpoena, meaning in the litigation by Rhode Island against the defendants of 38 Studios, the owner, Kurt Schilling, the EDC employees, insurance people, that kind of stuff, lawyers, Gordon Fox will be brought to deposition and or trial for conversation. Now, what's interesting about this is what he does about it.
This morning, Judge Michael Silverstein ruled that the autopsy will now include a deposition of one of the key players in this celebrated debacle, former Speaker of the House, Gordon Fox. His lawyer tried to have a subpoena against Gordon Fox thrown out, arguing the former Speaker will simply exercise his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination and refuse to answer questions. But a lawyer for a bank in the case argued Gordon Fox's Fifth Amendment privilege may not apply to every single question. Judge Michael Silverstein agreed, refusing to quash or throw out the subpoena, forcing Gordon Fox to be deposed.
The court is not inclined at this point, nor does it believe it should, quash the subpoena.
Of course, he doesn't have to say anything. I don't know if Judge Silverstein's going to hold him in contempt for not answering questions, but it'll just add more drama for Gordon Fox, who these days is so tight-lipped about 38 Studios. The compelling thing about this is that the feds, who raided his office, back a little further away, a month or so ago, his office, his state house office, and his home, indicated that he's not under investigation for anything to do with 38 Studios. Yet his lawyer has been saying, oh, well, you know what? Boy, oh boy, this grand jury, there's a lot of 38 Studio stuff going on around here, and I can't get my client jammed up. So this is a very fluid situation for Gordon Fox. And then, of course, you find out that everyone's catching up to Tim White's work in the next item here. This is 38 timeline becoming clearer, so they say. And the first set of headlines that I want to show you here, go to the WPRI.com website, and you'll see story after story after story after story on 38 Studios. But the bottom one there, which is now, a week or so old, 2 weeks ago actually, former Speaker Murphy visited 38 Studios in 2009. That was an original Tim White story where he had learned through some paperwork that he found that Speaker Murphy, back in October 2009, had visited the 38 Studios offices in Massachusetts. And Murphy's story to Tim was that Schilling was put together with Murphy so that Murphy could connect him with the House Speaker DeLeo. And I keep thinking to myself, well, wait a second, how does a World Series hero need an invitation from a Rhode Island House Speaker to meet the Massachusetts House Speaker? That doesn't make any sense to me. So this thing has been murky. Since then, Channel 10 has put out a story that not only did Murphy show up, so did Michael Corso, so did Gordon Fox. Here are the three characters in this particular saga, and that they also signed confidentiality agreements. Now, I'm quite certain that that's information that was more than handy for everybody. It's now being caught up by the Providence Journal. They've got a headline here today. Murphy and Fox won't talk about their names on this log. When companies have, what's the term I'm looking for? Intellectual property that they want to protect, and you come visit them, they make you sign confidentiality agreements. That's it, so that you don't go, oh, look at that new game they're making. I'm going to go tell Mattel. You can't do that. It doesn't mean that there's anything nefarious going on. At the same time, these companies don't let people into their buildings unless there's a purposefulness to it, and that, ladies and gentlemen, still is part of what needs to be determined here, the purposefulness of it. But follow the timeline, and if you want to be up to date on everything that's going on, I'm not just shilling for Channel 12, I'm telling you it's the truth that they've had it first most of the time here at WPRI.com. Now, next headline, politics, dodging or just plain lying, big hullabaloo over the Alan Fung ad calling Ken Block supporters blockhead. Here's what Eyewitness News had on that.
It was filled with lies and half-truths about my record.
The ad makes 4 claims that Block voted for President Obama twice, supports Obamacare, supports billions of dollars in extra government spending, and was advisor to Governor Chafee. Block says only the first is true.
I've hammered Obamacare. I was never an advisor to Governor Chafee. The last issue where I support billions of dollars in spending, I don't even know where that comes from.
Everything in that ad is factually accurate.
Alan Fung's campaign spokesperson Rob Koop defends the ad, claiming Block was an advisor to Governor Chafee, at one point supported Obamacare, and thereby supported billions of dollars in extra government spending.
He's claiming to be someone he's not.
The one thing about this, and I know journalists try to play this thing down the middle, but here's the truth. You know what the truth is? Ken Block offered a no-pay contract offer to the Chafee administration to provide intel on waste and fraud spending. It was part of his promise from back in the old race when he ran in 2010. If you call that an advisor to Governor Chafee, then you're whistling doggone Dixie. And just because campaign people say, oh, it's true, or oh, it's not true, doesn't mean we're helping you understand what's true and what's not. You know what I'm saying? In the meantime, Alan Fung's got this thing going on here where he claimed that Ken Block's polling numbers that were released back, a few weeks ago, where Block said that his pollster has him up 9 points, all those numbers were no good, completely, bogus, no way, no how. And he was asked by Buddy Cianci on WPRO back on May 18th whether he had his own polling numbers, and he said, no, not recently. Well, Patrick Sweeney, the campaign manager for Alan Fung, appeared back on the Buddy Cianci program yesterday and kind of burped up, oh yeah, we did take a poll.
The poll shows that Republicans reject Ken Block's pro-Obama, pro-Obamacare policies, and the mayor's going to win the primary, and we're in a very
How much
good
you going to win the
position
primary by? How much, Pat, how much you going to win the primary by?
I'll leave that up to smart guys like you.
Here's the thing, they will never answer the question, well, what was the score between you and Block? Alan Fung appeared on the Matt Allen Show, weeknights 6 to 9 on WPRO yesterday, and Matty was pressing him on his knowledge about this poll that he didn't know about and then found out about. It's his own poll.
As a candidate, I'm not sitting there reading the crosstabs, doing everything else,
You're
or
not?
even knowing exactly the time frame that's going. I've got to trust my consultants. I've got to trust my campaign managers to put the plan in place and go forward there.
So you didn't know?
So I don't know the exact date of when they were in the field.
Can I say bull on the television?
I don't think so.
I can't, Laura?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely not.
I can't, Ted?
No.
Okay. Well, when Alan Fung finally comes back here, I will look at him and say, Alan, bull dinky. Because here's the story. No candidate doesn't know when he has a poll in the field. No candidate doesn't know the numbers coming back in a poll in the field. And there's only one set of numbers that they worry about first. And guess what that is? Who's winning and who's losing? So if Alan, Block's numbers were no good, tell us what your numbers were. You know, the poll that we didn't do, that you didn't do, that you didn't know you did, that you delegate. Come on. I wasn't born yesterday, and neither were the voters. Next item. Yeah, all right, real quick here. USA Today, here's the headline, and here's the president in Poland sitting or standing next to the Polish president talking about, America's history and bringing back our soldiers.
The United States has always had a pretty sacred rule, and that is we don't leave our men or women in uniform behind.
A lot of people think the Taliban is a terrorist group, and while you may think they act that way, they're not labeled that way, which is kind of the out here. 5 Taliban members from Gitmo for 1 soldier who fled. There might be some due process for that soldier as he comes back. The big picture here, I'm not sure exactly where I stand on this yet, but here's what I do know. I do know that America has been trying to talk to the Taliban and create a relationship that is more constructive than the one that we've had. You may think it stinks, but it may be our only way out. Stay tuned on that. And lastly, speaking of the Obama family, the better half was here yesterday, right? And when I saw this picture first, I thought, well, how did the Taliban guy get connected to Michelle Obama? How did that, what? Of course, it's not a Taliban guy, it's a welder, Danny, right? You can see this.
With her name on its keel, First Lady Michelle Obama is now officially a part of the USS Illinois, being built right here in the Ocean State. From the keel laying to the christening to the building itself, Mrs. Obama admitted how awed she was by it all.
It is truly a privilege to be part of this very unique process. It is something that I will take away as one of the extraordinary experiences that I've had in my entire life.
Even the First Lady gets wowed by the incredible military strength that we have, the technology, and the economy of it all. Why shouldn't she? We are pretty awesome. When we come back, I can't believe Jess won't grab me a hot dog from the picnic, it just... I'll have to get over it. Ted Nesi, he's got real polls data next. All right, drum roll. Here's the latest Eyewitness News Providence Journal poll with Fleming Associates is the backbone researcher here. Democratic primary for governor. Angel Tavares, the Providence mayor, 33%. Gina Raimondo, the general treasurer, 29%. Clay Pell, 12%. And Todd Giroux still carrying his seal off the road at 2%. Ted Nesi is here. I got some other polling data as well. When are you releasing? Hey, how are you?
Good to see you, sir.
Couple of nights.
Yep,
here.
just
out
tonight and tomorrow. So people, depending which of your broadcasts they're watching, we're releasing at 10 and 11 Tuesday night about whether primary voters want to pay the 38 Studios bonds. And then tomorrow morning, Wednesday, on Eyewitness News at 5 a.m. and in the Journal, we'll have the Democratic primary for general treasurer, the Frank Caprio comeback campaign, which should also be interesting.
By the way, we record this in late afternoon. They don't even tell me the numbers that are not released yet, okay?
Well, we tell people
I don't get hot dogs, and I don't get no preview and no polling numbers. However, I can get over that. The Democratic primary is interesting.
It is.
Understandable between Tavares and Raimondo, don't you think? Kind of predictable?
Absolutely. It's amazing how little it's changed, right? Tavares, they both got exactly 2.2 percentage points more support than we had them at February. That's within the margin of error. It's basically, with those two, totally unchanged. The only real change, and it's not even that much more significant, but Clay Pell, he was a little under 15%, now he's at 11.5%. So just no sign of momentum for that campaign, and the other two just locked in there.
However, you've got some underneath data that's kind of interesting. Clay Pell's negatives rose significantly. Do we have that, Laura, somewhere? Will we do that? You put it up when you get a chance. Yeah, his unfavorable opinion jumped 11% in that period of time from February to June. Gee, you think that might have to do with a car that he couldn't find or something like that?
Certainly there's little else that he's done just to make news, let alone that would make unfavorable news to people, and I think that's a big part of it. I think people, all they've heard is that, or maybe some stuff about him being not prepared for this, or not, being very young and coming in out of nowhere for this race. Certainly it's got to be very disappointing to people back in Clay Pell, because as Joe Fleming said to Tim White and I, if you're coming in third place as an unknown, the whole idea when you start with 2/3 of the people or whatever not knowing you is you start to build people who like you, and a little bit on the negatives, but you certainly don't want, he got no extra positive and all negatives since February.
What the Bob Walsh's of the world, the NEA executive director, who was so confident about the surge that Clay Pell is going to make in this whole thing. I wonder what he's twiddling his thumbs over today when he sees this kind of data. This has got to shake the core of those people who have been actually cocky about the idea that this kid will come from nowhere.
I can't imagine they'll be shocked. They should, if they're doing a professional campaign, they'll be polling themselves. But I do think, you know, they really need to explain to people, especially important people who they're trying to win over to the Pell side, how you get from 11.5, you know, you need about 20 or more points probably of support beyond that to lap the other two and get past them and win this thing. And, you know, I suppose they could point to the fact that you still have about 40% of people don't know Clay Pell, don't have an opinion about, or maybe 1 in 3. And he does okay, favorable-wise with young voters, but it's really tough, particularly since Angel Taveras is extremely popular, and Gina Raimondo is fairly popular too, so he's not facing damaged candidates at the other side of the ticket.
Underbelly of this data also shows, and I'm sure all this stuff is available at WPRI.com, right, that there's kind of a pretty steady decision on Gina Raimondo. In other words, those who say yes to a poll are pretty confident that they'll say yes in September when they got to make the ultimate decision, but not so much for Angel Taveras. What do you think about that?
That's exactly right. We put this question in because Joe Fleming as well, we thought you might not see much change in those top numbers because there hasn't been a ton going on for the average voter to see. So we wanted to find out, do people, when they tell us I'm supporting Gina, I'm supporting Angel, I'm supporting Clay, do they say to themselves, and I love them and I'm absolutely voting for them or not? And what we found, we call it our strength of support question, is that Gina Raimondo actually is the largest percentage of her voters who say they're voting for, who say, and absolutely, definitely voting for that day. And Angel Taveras has the least. He's got about 44% of his voters, people who say they're currently backing him, who say there's a good chance they'll switch to someone else. For her, that's only down in the 30s. So you see how she's very polarizing.
I got to give you guys credit. It's a fascinating question to ask because you understand what kind of, you know, solid rock or whatever. In fact, overall, where we have one more graphic, I think, to show, overall, 41% of the polled group there said, I could be sold, which may be Clay Pell's only hope, and which gives the two leading candidates an opportunity to go toe to toe, right?
I mean, Gina Raimondo, it's so hackneyed at this point, but it's the truth. She's got to take down Angel Taveras if she wants to win this thing. He is extremely 67% favorable rating. We didn't poll Jack Reed in this, but I could see that being better than Jack Reed, who's usually the lodestar for Democrats.
67% favorability rating with the highest, I don't know if I'll vote for him though rating.
Well, and that's the question, right?
That's weird, dude.
I think, you know, Joe Fleming said to us, Raimondo is polarizing. He said, if you like Raimondo, you seem to really like Raimondo, and you're saying, not only do I like her, I'm voting for her, and she'd be a great governor. Angel Taveras, I think there are a lot more people who have a nice opinion of him, but clearly, when he's at 67% favorable, but only about 33% voting for him in the primary, he hasn't converted, he's only converted maybe about half of those people to actually say, I want this guy to be our governor of Rhode Island.
And then there's the Republicans. They have their own polls, maybe. What do they, chop liver? Next. Hey, listen, there's only one media outlet, really, a combo, Projo and Eyewitness News, that does polling, and we thank them for that. I mean, I'm paid by the same company, but I'll criticize, and I will ask you this: what the hell? No Republicans? What?
I freely admit it. We just do not trust the ability to poll accurately. We don't want to just put polls out. We want to put accurate polls out.
Well, wait a second. If Fung and Block, Fung, of course, is, you know, hiding his numbers right now, but if both of those campaigns have viable polling professionals, why is it something that you guys don't feel like you can accurately
First and
portray?
foremost, we don't know that their polling is accurate. We won't know that till September 9th, and that's only if they tell us what they're polling.
We don't know if your polling is accurate
But
until September 9th.
It is. It's accurate, folks. You can take that to the
Yeah, seriously.
Well, you know what,
I mean, I think at some juncture, and listen, if I'm being the conscience of that's okay. I mean, whatever. At some juncture, you've got to be able, if you're only polling Democrats, you know, viable news organizations have something to answer to, because it looks like there's a tilted predisposition about what November will bring, and that very well may not be the case.
It absolutely isn't. It's just Rhode Island. Look, people have to deal with the fact around 10% of voters are actually registered Republicans in Rhode Island. It is so hard to forecast what a Republican electorate will look like in a primary. And I would point you to our crosstown rivals at JR, who predicted Steve Laffey winning by 18 or 20 points just a few weeks out from the 2006 U.S. Senate primary with Lincoln Chafee. I asked Senator Laffey, but I'm pretty sure that was incorrect. He did not. That was nowhere near close. And I think it's worse. Yes, we don't love that we're not giving you both primaries right now, but it would be worse to hand out data that we don't think is accurate
Will you do that? Will you do both parties prior to the primary one more time, or
I'm
no?
not. I don't.
You guys are not touching the Republican primary.
I don't believe so. No.
It's interesting.
It
goes to show you the health and welfare of the Republican Party, period, in the state of Rhode Island, and the media's reaction to it. I wonder what people think about that.
I think I understand that, and I think it's a fair question for people to ask. But I do think, we have to deal in the reality that a Republican primary electorate is just very hard to find. There are so many more judgment calls. The primary shifts so much. I do agree that in a way, it's a funny part of how the Democratic dominance in Rhode Island maybe perpetuates itself.
So what's your opinion? When Block says I'm up 9, you say...
Until I hear the Fung people say they have a poll saying otherwise, I assume he's right that he's up. I don't know that it's 9, but I think...
people do have a poll.
And they have yet to tell anyone that they're ahead. All they'll say... When the Block poll came out, I said to the Fung people, I said, hey, I want to give you a chance to respond if you have other numbers, if you want to say something. And I got back a single sentence that said, we don't think Republicans are going to vote, or we know Republicans don't want a candidate who backed Barack Obama. They didn't say, our polling says Alan Fung ahead, which you'd assume they would.
Can't wait to see tonight what the people think, at least in the Democratic primary, about 38 Studios bond payments. Maybe it'll have something to do with the legislature's behavior. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thanks.
We'll find out.
All right. Ted Nesi, ladies and gentlemen. WPRI.com, your state of mind when we come back. Nesi was so compelling, I ran over time, so I can just remind you how you react to all of this. Talk to me about the Republican thing. 228-1886, state of mind at myritv.com. But obviously the Democrats are battling it out, at least Tavares and Gina. I got to go. See you on the radio tomorrow at noon. Bye.